I am pleased to be joined now by the co-authors of the book, Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. In her own words, Viola Ford Fletcher, 109-year-old Viola Ford Fletcher, and her grandson, Ike Howard. Mother Fletcher, good to see you. How are you today?
Fine. Doing all right.
You doing all right? You look well.
Well, I'm not, but thank you.
Oh no, you are. You look well, and those colors are popping on you.
Okay.
So you look beautiful. Ike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, my brother.
It's good to have you in studio. Thanks for the time. Let me start with this. We were in the conference room before we came into the studio to commence this conversation, obviously, and I said I was introducing Mother Fletcher, as you recall, to some colleagues of mine at the station, and I talked about the Tulsa race riots. And you said, no. We don't call them Tulsa race riots. In history, we call them the Tulsa Race Massacre. People call them Tulsa race riots, but you immediately chin-checked us on the word riots. Tell me why.
Riot, even today, is written into insurance clauses. So back then, the newspaper printed that it was a riot when, in fact, it was a massacre. They did so with the underlying cause of taking property from black people. So none of the insurance claims were paid for all the property destroyed. 36 square blocks of a black Wakanda was destroyed, burned to the ground, and none of the insurance policies paid off. And they did so by calling it a riot. So if you go home and look at your insurance claims today, it's very, very small. It's in very small print, and it says we will not reimburse you any damages done to you in case of a riot. Right.
So the use of the word riot was intentional.
Intentional. Words have meaning, and they did so intentionally to further exacerbate heinous crime, the worst race massacre in U.S. history. For those who've heard this story, it has been over 100 years, of course. For those who've heard about this story but don't know the details, just take a minute or two to give us the details of what happened. Basically, they had a young man who was a shoe shine boy. They said he assaulted a white female, that was an elevator operator. That wasn't the case. However, they used that as a way to descend on Black Wall Street and burn it to the ground, killing thousands of people. The historical record would say 300. It's more like 3,000. They burned property to the ground. They threw bodies into the river. How can you say 300 when you're throwing bodies in the river? Throwing bodies in the river. They buried people in mass graves, so don't have a real accounting for how many people were killed. So they burned everything to the ground. However, they took the time to loot. They took silver, anything of value from these black homes, they took it. And then they burned it to the ground. And then they killed people. It was a very heinous crime, the worst race massacre in U.S. history. Not the only one, but the worst one.
Mother Fletcher, you were how old at the time? 7? You were 7 years old then?
7 years old.
What do you recall at the age of 7? What do you remember?
Well, I remember so much that I can't probably say. But anyway, I saw people getting killed and houses getting burned, and then they shouted to our families or all the black people to get out of town. If not, they all would be killed. So my mother, father, and six sisters and brothers, we loaded into a horse and wagon carriage and got out of town. So our families safely got out of town. But, we was afraid, and not only my family, most of the black people did. They didn't get killed or, injured. Oh, there's so many people left injured as well as killed. And they stored people or destroyed by throwing some of the dead in the rivers or something like a burial.
No, a burial is when you put to rest with dignity. It wasn't a burial. It was they were trying to hide the atrocity.
Hide the bodies.
Yeah, hide
what they had done. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And to further amplify that, people don't know there was a concentration camp. They had a concentration camp, meaning they had fenced off area, and they put all the black people that survived, that didn't escape, that they didn't kill, in a fenced off area i.e. a concentration camp. The only way you could leave that area was to be checked out by a white person. That's the only way you could leave, to be checked out and vouched for by a white person. We're talking about human beings.
Just getting started in this hour. Our guests are Viola Ford Fletcher, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Massacre, and her grandson, Ike Howard. Together, they've written the book, Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre, in her own words. More when we come forward on Tavis SMiley. I'm Tavis SMiley, glad to have you with us. This is February, of course. It is Black History Month, and you couldn't do better than the conversation that we are honored to be engaged in right now with Viola Ford Fletcher, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre, and her grandson, Ike Howard. Together, their book is called Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre, in her own words. Two things come to mind immediately. One, you were talking about your family earlier, Mother Fletcher, about your family, and you just lost your last sibling, your brother. Passed away a few months ago. He was, 102?
Yes.
He passed away at 102.
Yeah.
What do you make of how two persons in the same family live to be above 100?
Well, it's wonderful for me.
It is wonderful, isn't it? Yes. But you're 109, almost 110. Your birthday is when?
In May.
In May. So in May, you'll be 110. As we say, Lord willing, you'll be 110 in May.
That's right.
But you lost your brother at 102. Uh-huh. And the funny thing about that, when her brother passed away at the age of 102, he was the youngest living survivor of the Race Massacre. So 102, he was the youngin' in the group, right? Uh-huh. But condolences on the loss of your brother. The two of you, I assume, were very close all those years.
Very close.
You were very close to your brother.
Very close to Uncle Red.
Oh yes, sure.
Uncle Red was the life of the party.
Yeah.
Uncle Red would bring a smile to you. He's gonna make you laugh or make you cry.
Yeah.
They testified before Congress.
I was about to ask that. So you and your brother testified before Congress. What was that experience like for you at that age to testify in front of the U.S. Congress?
Oh, it was wonderful. You know, we were just glad to do it. And my brother always had a fun way of doing it, you know. And so it was just something we look forward to doing.
Yeah. What is it that you wanted Congress to hear from you? What did you want them to hear from you that day?
Well, we haven't, or the city haven't been reimbursed about the loss of most of, we have that, and they do that, I guess, very often. I won't say, how often do they have a...
Well, he's talking about the congressional meeting when you testified before Congress. It was the first time she actually got a chance to tell her story.
Yeah, it's the first time for me. But they'd been having it before.
What she's talking about, the preceding cases that came forward. One was dismissed by the Supreme Court. We had a court case, still have one pending.
Yeah.
It's at the Supreme Court of Oklahoma right now. It's a public nuisance case. They've been blighted. They were alive and there. They were blighted, and they wish to be made whole.
What do you make of the fact, Ike, that there have been a number of these cases, and some of these lawyers I know personally, have known personally. You can't do much better than Charles Ogletree at Harvard, now gone. You can't do any better than my friend Johnny Cochran, now gone. There have been some brilliant black legal minds who've done everything they could to try to get reparations in this particular in this incident for this incident. What do you make of the fact that with all that black brilliance, the state of Oklahoma has not budged yet?
Well, state of Oklahoma is often last when it comes to many progressive things. This is a known fact. The state of Oklahoma was once the headquarters for the Ku Klux Klan. This is a known fact. So we don't expect otherwise. However, through a period of time, some of this ignorance, this hatred should die off. But you can pass along generational trauma. That's evident. You can also pass along generational ignorance. That's evident. People, you put babies in a room, they can be all the colors of the rainbow. They're going to play with each other. They learn how to hate other people. They learn these. These are learned behaviors. They're not born into this world hating anybody. So in Oklahoma is last in many respects. They need to step up their A game, do the right thing, pay it forward. to these living survivors and the descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Yeah. Mother Fletcher, how did what happened all those years ago traumatize you? You and your family got out of town. But over the years, you can't forget this, obviously. It stays in your mind.
Oh, no.
Tell me about how you've lived all these years having endured that massacre.
Well, with it on our mind, because can't sleep at night. Before my mother passed, she just had a terrible time at night. Instead of sleeping, she'd be walking the floor and waking me up. She lived with me a lot. I said, Vi, get up. They're burning the house. They're tearing the roofs off the house. It's just something that stays with you. You'll just never forget it, to see how that, because where we lived, our little house, we got out all right, but, it got everything we had got burned and destroyed, just what we left without what we had on our back.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
My grandmother talks to the ancestors. She used to have a series of really bad sweats and nightmares and whatnot, and she won't sleep in a bed. She always has to be in go mode.
I'm glad you said that. So I read this story, and I couldn't wait to get to this. And so let me if I can, I want to hear from her first.
Okay.
I want you to comment. Okay. No. So when I read this story, it saddened me. It gave me chill bumps.
Well,
that you won't sleep lying down.
Oh no.
You sleep in a chair.
Yes, sleep in a chair.
Because you want to be ready in case they come again.
Yeah. But now my health is so bad with my knees, I can't walk without.
Yeah.
So, but being in a chair and having something to push on to get up.
Sure.
Yeah. I can't move without that. No.
How do you process, though, hearing your grandmother for all these years say to us that she has slept sitting up because of the trauma of what she endured and being ready to go if they come again?
It's real for them.
Yeah.
The worst type of slavery is mental slavery. They told everybody in concentration camp, if you talk about this, we're going to kill you, your family, your goldfish, everything. And that lasted that's how they were able to hide it for so long.
So Mother Fletcher, they threatened to kill you if y'all told the story?
Oh, that's what they said.
Yeah.
We heard, so... Everybody was sure.
For a long time, she wouldn't let me.
She wouldn't talk about it?
She wouldn't let me talk about it.
Wow.
Because I lived with her, and I started asking questions, and I was like, Granny, why come you want to sleep in the bed, and why come you want this, and what was you talking about, and you was crying in your sleep, and I started asking questions, so she started to confide in me. And I later went on to join the military. Once I finished service, I came back, and I said, look, we are not our ancestors in the sense that we would allow this to happen again, ever, period. I said, your story needs to be told. We just need to find the right author to do so. Yeah. Not the right author, but the right publisher. We're new to the game. We're rookies in the game. Sure. That's when we, was blessed enough to find Mocha. Yeah. And she really walked us through the process.
Yeah. I want to talk about Mocha in just a second because this is Black History Month. So there's Black history all around. You, your grandmother, Mocha. We'll talk about Mocha and the publishing imprint in just a second here. But you said something a moment ago that got my attention, Ike. How much of your grandmother's story, how much of your family's story did you know before you went into the military? And the reason I'm asking you that question is because it seems to me that a family that endured what your family endured, that the government would not step up and still has not stepped up to make recompense for, and then you decide to go serve the American public by... You see where I'm going, right?
Right.
Help me understand this, brother man.
With the loss of generational wealth,
sure,
we gained generational poverty. The only way at the time I felt I could get out the hood, because I was in the projects, I lived with my grandmother, and I wanted to make a better life for whatever future children I may have. And things evolved, and the military has evolved to some degree, and it was a good place for me to start because I was in the streets, and I could have very well went down the wrong road. A lot of my friends was taking that road. So I decided I need to join the military because if I don't, I'm a product of this environment. And I'm going to do the same thing that they're starting to do. And that's not a good look. So I joined the military. My father was in the military as well. So we had several generations of our family served in the military, including Uncle Red. Yeah. So I took that same path to get out. I was in 3-4 wars, did 20 years, and that allowed me to escape the generational curse and try to start to rebuild some type of wealth for the family, obtain a house.
No, from that perspective, I get it, because I was sure thinking, like, I'm not sure I'd be signing up to serve this country after the way they maltreated us and my family. But I take your point. While we're talking about it, how do you process what your family and all those other families lost in terms of the generational wealth they were building? We call this Black Wall Street for a reason. And every time I think about this story, I think of all of the wealth that was lost for generations because of what they did in this massacre, to burn down Greenwood, Archer, Pine. We all know the Gap Band. Charlie Wilson just got his star on the Walk of Fame.
Right.
Charlie's a friend of mine. Just got his star on the Walk of Fame a week or so ago. And for those who don't know this backstory, you should know. If you're Gap Band fans, you know this. The GAP stands for Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. Those are the parts, the neighborhoods. And Miss Mother Fletcher smiling. Everybody knows that. Those are the neighborhoods in Tulsa that were affected, of course, by this massacre all those years ago. And Charlie and his brothers, in an ode to their hometown, named the band the Gap Band. That's how they came to be, if you don't know that backstory. But back to my point, back to my question, how do you process all these years later? You and Uncle Red and other family members had to go into the military to try to escape generational poverty because of what they did to all these black families in Black Wall Street.
It's the number. They can pay reparations. There's a common sense approach to paying reparations. Everybody know you start to create wealth through land and home ownership. So let's say it's 100 years. There's 100 years that passed. They owned a home. You can sell a home and clear capital gains tax every 2 years. So you sell a home, in 2 years' time, you buy another home. You gain some cash flow and a bigger home. In 2 more years, you buy another home. So let's say you can do that 2 years divided by, 100 divided by 2, that's 50 times. You can make $200 to $500,000 selling homes depending on your geographical location. So you can just do the math. They could have sold a home every 2 years for the last 50 years and amplified that generational wealth. They could have took proceeds from the money that they had with property and started a business or invested in their children, got a better education, had a higher income, and everything amplifies. They could have started a IRA, a IUL. I mean, a lot of people don't know about some of these things, but there are things that could have been done. We wouldn't be in the position that we're in now. We're late in the game. Across the country, especially in Tulsa area, they owe reparations to the entire United States of these America for melanated people. They definitely owe reparations in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there's a way to figure it out to make it make sense. They can give out housing vouchers to buy a new house, educational vouchers. They can give out straight up cash. First of all, give us our money.
Run me my coins, as they say.
Run me my coins, but also have tax incentives for black businesses. So they screwed them over for 100 years. Help a man help them start a black business and no taxes for the next 100 years.
Mother Fletcher, what do you think you were denied? You didn't get a high quality education.
No.
When they ran you out and your family left under the cover of darkness, all these years later, what do you think you were denied because of what happened?
Well, a chance to go to school and get a good education. I think education is the most important thing that, that we humans, especially the black people, should have.
That's right.
Because, we're pushed back because we are uneducated and all of that. But that was really, destroyed what my family got. Because after that, we was, forced to leave town. Well, without, I don't know, the knowledge of doing things. Well, we worked as farmers, sharecropped people's farms and worked in the cotton fields. And then when you work for families like that, you don't get to go to school the full 9 months.
That's right.
You can only go to school when the weather is bad. If the sun is shining and the weather's good, well, you go to the field and work. So that's how I was raised. And ended up without the education.
Yeah. How did now? We're sitting in Los Angeles. Obviously, this program is heard across the country in syndication. But I'm based in L.A., as everybody knows, and there's a California part of your story. So we know the Tulsa part, but you found your way to California at some point, did you not?
Oh yes, we can't. But you see, I've had 2 brothers in service, 2 sons in service, and 2 grandsons in service. So that kind of forced me to think that after we heard about the California work, well, I came here and worked in the shipyards and helped to build ships. So I was just working hard, thinking building a ship will safely bring one of my family members home. It might have been a silly idea, but you always have a reason.
Oh yeah, to do what you do.
Do what you do. Yeah.
When we come forward, I'm gonna try. I'll work with Miles during this break here. I'm holding in my hand her actual shipyard ID. Now she's 109, so this thing has got to be. How many years old is this thing, Ike?
Got to be at least 87 years old or more.
I'm holding in my hands right now her original ID when she worked at the shipyard.
Yeah.
Can you get it here, Miles? I want to just, for those who are watching us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Miles is zooming in so you can actually see this. This is a piece of history that I'm holding in my hand.
Yeah.
I've got history in front of me. I got history in my hand. It is February, Black History Month. More of our conversation with the authors of Don't Let Them Bury My Story, Viola Ford Fletcher and her grandson, Ike Howard, when we come forward on Tavis SMiley. I'm Tavis SMiley, and I'm delighted to have you hanging out with us in this hour, and what an hour this is. I say all the time that we celebrate Black history today because somebody did something yesterday. And if we do nothing today, there is no Black history to celebrate tomorrow.
That's right.
Somebody once said to me that every race of people ought to be judged by the best that they have produced and not by the worst. Viola Ford Fletcher is among the best our people have ever produced. Yes. She is now 109 and sharp as a tack. At 109, she's not just the oldest survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. She is now the oldest author in the history of the world. Nobody at her age has ever written a book. So now she's got her own book, but she's also in the Guinness Book of World Records. Certainly will be, as the oldest person to ever write a book. Her book is called Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre, in her own words. That book is co-authored with her grandson, Ike Howard. I am delighted, honored, and humbled to have both of them in studio live with us right now during Black History Month, and the timing for this conversation, I think, could not be more propitious. So, Mother Fletcher, tell me about your time working in the shipyards. Tell me more about what you did in the shipyards.
Well, I was a welder.
You were a welder.
Yeah, well,
you were a woman welder way back then.
Well, now let's kind of boil it down.
Okay. Break it down for me.
I work with the ship fitter. The ship fitter, they put the slabs of steel that build a ship, Well, then I would weld a little strip about so many inches long, just enough to hold it in place. And the ship fitter did that ahead of the production welders. Then some production welders will come along and build the whole ship from wherever amount it goes.
Now keep in mind, this is a woman with a 4th grade education.
Yes.
Now imagine if she went to school. Now she already welding ships in the middle of the war.
But they trained us how to weld before we didn't know anything about it. So, and it was so easy for me. It was sort of like I'd taken the idea that I could sew on a sewing machine.
I like the way you think. I like how you think.
Yes, and it gives you some idea, what you're getting into. So, the whole time I worked, well,
And how long did you do that? How many years did you do that?
About 2 years.
2 years,
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were your grandmother was in California. How long? All told?
I don't know how many years it was, but I know she told me she had a garage apartment because people were renting out. The apartment.
Well, people went there from all over the United States to work.
Work on those ships.
I think some place I had the history there was about 4,000 people worked at that shipyard. But there's so many different things to do, and
Right.
they had different groups
Sure.
doing, and so, but
Yeah.
They had a lot of
and
shift
then
work, she said.
most people that here, they made garage apartments for living people for people. So many people lived in their own cars, and made put little covers over.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they were there for the work. Everybody came there for the work.
Why, sure.
Yeah.
Everything was rationed then. You couldn't buy shoes and clothes and so many things that you couldn't just buy straight out. They had a certain issue for everything, So you go downtown and see a line of people. You wonder what they're in line for. And if you had time and money, you get in that line, and maybe so. It was quite an experience,
Yeah.
for me being a girl from Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and then going out there coming out here, seeing with so many people,
Yeah.
That's what was exciting to me.
You came to California by yourself?
Well, I had a lady friend, and then, so many people going to you. There wasn't no
You
problem
you weren't scared to leave Oklahoma?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay. Well, I get the sense not much scares you anyway.
Granny's a gangster.
I get Granny's a gangster. Yeah, I get the sense that not much scares you anyway.
No.
Yeah.
No. Going where you could do better, and so, and I helped my folks back home a lot with so many things being rationed. Well, I was able to buy things and send
back home
from yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah.
That you were working and sending stuff back to Oklahoma to your family.
Oh sure.
Wow.
Sure.
Well, how would you describe, Ike, as we sit and talk about Oklahoma and this Tulsa Race Massacre? How would you describe your feelings toward the state of Oklahoma all these years later?
The state of Oklahoma is sitting on probably a $36 billion surplus. The state representative, Regina Goodwin, has put forth bills to benefit the 3 living, well, I still consider my Uncle Red still here, survivors, that they should, advance them some of that money. A small token of, hey, we effed up. We know we effed up. Yeah. They had a commission that did a report that said that these people are owed reparations. They're owed compensation in several different ways. State of Oklahoma, if you know right, do right. They have some progressive leaders, and they still have some people that are in power that are probably prejudiced as all get out. And that is obvious, because if you have that type of money in surplus and you know that you're at fault, the National Guard failed to act on that very day. The state of Oklahoma is at fault. The Supreme Court holds the case in its hand. They can reinstate the public nuisance case. They know that they're all over 100 years old. One is already passed. Supreme Court needs to go ahead and make a decision, make the right decision, put it back in the hands of the court.
I'm not naive at all in asking this, but why do you think they are so recalcitrant? We know what happened. They know these survivors. There are only 2 left now.
Right.
Both 109. Your grandmother about to be 110.
Right.
Lord willing in May. Why do you think they are so recalcitrant about this? So stubborn about this?
Tulsa Race Massacre was the worst in U.S. history. However, if you buy the book, in the back of the book, we point out Bloody Sunday. We point out other issues of our people across the country being subject to the same type of behavior on smaller scales. Nonetheless traumatizing, nonetheless removal of generational wealth, and so on and so forth. This could be a landmark case and a way forward for everybody to finally get reparations across the country.
So you think the pushback in part is about the fact that they think if they do this here, it's a slippery slope.
Very slippery slope, because these are facts. These are historical facts. The first thing traded on a New York Stock Exchange was African American slaves. Think about that.
African slaves, yeah, sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, at least New York, came across a mass grave, and they said, okay, this is sacred ground. We need to do something about this. We need to change our behavior. California is being progressive right now, and the discussion on reparations in different areas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're starting to look back at history and said, okay, we already know this is wrong. You know, maybe we're not our ancestors. They was prejudiced, Jim Crow laws, da-da-da. But we're fast forward to 2024. You know in your heart that's wrong.
Yeah.
You know in your heart what to do is right. So if you know right, do right.
Now, California is leading the country right now in this conversation. We are waiting to see how it's going to play itself out here in California. The rest of the country is watching us. I say all the time about California politics. What happens here either cast a long shadow or a long sunbeam across the nation, because everybody's watching us. And so we are hopeful that here in California we'll get this thing right, so the rest of the nation can see what ought to be done, what in fact can be done when it comes to reparations. When we come forward, more of our conversation with the authors of the book, Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. In her own words, how delighted are we, how blessed are we to have Viola Ford Fletcher, Mother Fletcher, live with us in studio, and her grandson, Ike Howard, on Tavis SMiley. My time is getting away from me. I've enjoyed this immensely, this time with Viola Ford Fletcher. We call her Mother Fletcher, and her grandson, Ike Howard. The book is called Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. In her own words, she's now 109 years young, about to be 110 come May. And as you can hear and you can see, she is just as sharp as ever. And I'm just tickled at the idea. I was asking some friends of mine the last few days, just doing my own little survey, who is the oldest person you ever met? And I couldn't get above 101. Nobody in my circle had met anybody that was over 101. One of my friends had an aunt who passed at 101. So that was and all of my friends, that was the oldest person they'd ever known. So I got all of them beat now. I've met a 109-year-old person named Mother Fletcher. So I'm the winner in my circle now, having met somebody who's older than 101. That said, Mother Fletcher, why did you want to write this book? What did you want to say to people?
Well, I think that's what to say. If I could do that, well, I think others should.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that should be done more often. Mm-hmm. I think a question was asked of a little kid that shouldn't boys or men boys, he said, write books. Mm-hmm. Yes, I think families should write books. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. No, but if these books aren't written, then our stories don't get told. I said I've written, 23, 24 books myself, and I tell people all the time that each of us doesn't just have a story, each of us is a story. Yep. You are a story.
Really?
Your grandson is a story.
Thank
and
you.
if we don't write these books, then our stories don't get told. Right. That history doesn't get passed on. So I'm so glad you took the time to finally do this. Tell me how the book came to be, Ike, and why now? I mean, this book could have been written years ago, I suspect. I mean, the story hasn't changed. Why now?
Well, I came across a fascinating young woman. Her name is Mocha. Mm-hmm. And
hey, Mocha. I know you're listening.
She's Mocha Media. And she is absolutely fabulous. So she kind of pushed the envelope. Mm-hmm. We met through mutual friends, and she flew to Dallas, Texas, and she brought her children with her. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing to come by yourself, but when you bring your kids with you now, we getting personal. Mm-hmm. We broke bread. We had something to eat.
That was smooth, Mocha. That was smooth. Go ahead.
Mother Fletcher loves children, so we broke bread together. We had a genuine conversation. She looked us in the eye. She held us by the hand and said, "Hey, look, this is what we can do. This is how we can do it, and the option is yours." She wasn't pushy. She just kept it 1,000. And being that she's a strong black woman, as well as my grandmother, I said, I think this is the way to go. Yeah. And Simon & Schuster, it was a lot of people had an opportunity to take this book and take it to the stratosphere. I said, you know what? I'm riding with you. In the spirit of Black Wall Street, I'm down like 4 flat tires.
There you go. I love black folk who love other black folk. I love black folk who support other black folk. And that's exactly what Ike and his grandmother did in their choice to go with Mocha Media for the publication of this text. It's called Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. In her own words, Viola Ford Fletcher and her grandson, Ike Howard, our guest right now on Tavis SMiley. Our remaining moments with Ike Howard, the grandson of Viola Ford Fletcher, his granny, as he calls her, Mother Fletcher, as we call her, now 109. Her book is called Don't Let Them Bury My Story. Mother Fletcher, can you tell me about this picture on the cover of the book? Tell me about this picture.
Well, I was a young lady at that time.
A gorgeous young lady, as I might add. But you're still gorgeous. At 109, you look beautiful. But that's a gorgeous photo of you.
Well, no, I don't remember. Just let's see, how old was I? Between 16 or 18 years old, I think. Just turning into being a young lady.
It is a gorgeous photo.
Yeah.
To what do you attribute? To what do you attribute the fact that you have lived to be 109? What's the secret to being 109?
Well, it's just a blessing.
Just a blessing. I love it.
That's all.
I love
because
it.
there's so many different things that I've, tried to eat right and get enough rest and sleep and just anything good.
Yeah.
Well, I try to take part of it, get into part of it.
There you go. I like that. Anything good, she wants to be down with. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Before we wrap this up, Mr. Smiley, we have the Viola Ford Fletcher Foundation.
Please talk about it.
The Viola Ford Fletcher Foundation is here in the United States. It's also in Africa. We're based out of Ghana, and we have a project called the Pad Me Project, where we give out menstruation pads to young women, along with panties, bras, deodorant, soap, teach them about the importance of menstrual hygiene. It's an absolutely fabulous program, and we really need people to know about the Viola Ford Fletcher Foundation. I know it's a lot of giving across the board. People don't know she has her own foundation, and we really need help to maintain the legacy in years to come. So I'm sending a shout out to Shaquille O'Neal and Floyd Mayweather and people that I know that can make a difference.
And folks, I'm glad you went there. I was going to close with that, but you jumped ahead of me. That's okay. How can folk access the foundation online?
www.violafordfletcherfoundation.org. Go to latest news, click on that, and you'll see videos of what we actually do. So we show and prove. We just don't talk about it. We be about it. We've been back and forth. Ghana hosted us. She's a citizen of Ghana and the United States.
Oh, yeah.
The only person to receive Ghanaian citizenship on U.S. soil. Her and Uncle Red did last year. It was the last day of Black History Month last year that received Ghanaian citizenship.
I've been to Ghana a few times. It's a beautiful place. And I always get in trouble when I say this, but I've been to only 16 African countries. I've only been to 16. But the Ghanaian people are the nicest folk on the planet, and the nicest folk on the continent. So you picked the right country to partner with. Let me close with this. I got 60 seconds left. Every time you are with your grandmother, which is, I assume, pretty much every day, what do you take, Ike, from her strength?
Perseverance is key. She tells me, if you get knocked down, get back up. She said, I ain't raising nobody that ain't got no girth to them. You got to be about that life. Stand on business for real. She is, her perseverance is absolutely amazing. You can't complain about not going to school knowing that she wanted to go to school. You can't complain about going to work. She worked until she was 85 years of age. So with those type of examples set before you, you know what you have to do. The bar is set. You know what I'm saying? So when you see young people complaining or you think you got it bad, try being 109. Trying to make it to 110.
Mother Fletcher, I'll give you the last word, as we should. Is there any wisdom you can share with us? Just give me something good to hold on to. I don't care what it is. Just give me something good to hold on to. Tell me something that I should always keep in mind.
Understand.
He wants you to say something positive for the people. Something positive. The last word, a positive word for the people.
Well, I'd still say, I think people, after we have a little book out, somebody else might try to do the same thing.
Yes.
So with me, 109, if I can do it, I feel like someone else should.
Yeah.
We need to spread our little messages wider.
That's right.
So more people can, have something to read about. Well, if she can do it, I'll try or I'll do it. And that's what I'm proud of.
And you should be.
And
we are proud of you. And words don't do justice to how proud of you we are for being a living epistle, a living example of resilience.
Yeah.
You You are the poster, the poster woman for resilience. And we're glad to have you on this program. The book is called Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. In her own words, written by the 109-year-old Viola Ford Fletcher, Mother Fletcher, and her grandson, Ike Howard. Love you both. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.